Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Critic Group 1 will present the case study on what pushes scientists to lie, the disturbing but familiar story of Haruko Obokata. Firstly, here are some comments and credits for the previous presenting group. The slides are wordy and lengthy. It is recommended to use mind map and smart art graphic that looks way more interesting. In addition, there were some technical problems whereby inappropriate use of color fonts together with the background slide. And there was a time whereby the small screen of the presenter overlapped with the words of the slide. However, the presenting group had delivered such a very informative presentation with comprehensive explanation on publishing aspect. The additional credit point for the presenting group is they managed to highlight important points related to this case study. Next, our stand, we believe that the stem cell research with proper ethical conduct can contribute to the bright future in the medical sector. Nonetheless, we oppose the action of data fabrication and falsification conducted by Haruko Obokata. Therefore, we agree with the stand of presenting group proposed. So, today, we will be focusing into 4 agendas, which are ethics in research, Japanese culture, data fabrication and falsification in Malaysia, and information regarding stem cell research. First agenda, ethics in research.
Referring to the articles of this case study, it mainly mentions about the ethical misconduct done by the professionals, specifically the researchers. Therefore, we will be focusing on the Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct developed by WHO. In this code, there are 5 principles, and these principles shall be practiced by all professionals to ensure their right conduct. Firstly, integrity. It is to behave according to the ethical principles and act in good faith, honesty and fairness. Thus, the researchers are expected to observe national and local laws at all times, to avoid any actions that can be perceived as an abuse to privileges, and to demonstrate the highest standard of scientific integrity. Secondly, accountability. The researchers should take responsibility for their actions, decisions, and their consequences. The researchers can also provide guidance and advices to the colleagues where appropriate. In the case of supervision, the researchers should take responsibility to assess the performance of the staff members in a fair and factual manner. Next, the independence and impartiality. It is to ensure that the personal views and convictions do not compromise ethical principle or any other interest. Therefore, researchers should disclose promptly and fully any conflict of interest through a form of declaration of interest, or by seeking advice from the ethics team, or by consulting their supervisor for appropriate actions. Besides that, the researchers should also practice respect, which is respect toward dignity, worth, diversity, equality, and privacy of all persons. Therefore, researchers should actively discourage all forms of harassment and violence, and should also report any perceived acts of harassment and violence. Last but not least, the professional commitment. It is to demonstrate a high level of professionalism and loyalty towards the organization, its objectives and mandate. To execute this principle, the researchers should deliver their duties in an ethical and professional manner.
Reproducibility is defined as obtaining consistent results using the same data and code as the original study. Several factors can contribute to non-reproducible study, including transparency of research. The problem is either when the researchers did not report their entire studies, only report selective study outcomes, incomplete reporting of methods, or inaccurate reporting of results and inferences. The second factor is underpowered study. It means that the study may have insufficient participants, subjects, or data that may result in false negative or false positive findings. Next is potential biases or any conflict of interest involving the researchers. And last but not least is misconduct. Therefore, here is some suggestion and improvement that we can do. Firstly, for the researchers, they must practice good scientific method. They also need to monitor their compliance with standard guidelines. For the institution, it is suggested that they monitor their staff regularly and reward those who comply with related guidelines. For the funding agency, it is advised for them to provide more long-term funding and to fund people rather than the projects. This is in hope to lessen the pressure on the researchers. Other than that, scientific method courses should be provided to the junior investigators. Next, for the journal or the article publishers, they should give a greater weight to hypothesis testing studies, which equivalent of a phase 2 or 3 of a clinical study. The journal should also encourage pre-publication. There are many benefits, but some of it is that instead of waiting several months before the paper is published by the journal, other researchers can discover the work much sooner. The readers can potentially point out any critical flaws or errors and suggest studies or data that can strengthen the argument. This may produce a better outcome at the end of the study.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Here I would like to highlight some conflict of interest that are related to Abu Qatar case. Basically, SOI is defined as a situations in which an individual is affected by circumstances that can potentially lead her to an actions that are in conflict with her professional or ethical duties. Having SOI is not a major concern, it is how the SOI can influence the research that can be problematic. This is because SOI can increase the incidence of unethical decision or judgment in certain situations. From the Abu Qatar case, a professional judgment concerning a primary interest such as the validity of research tends to be unduly influenced by her secondary interests such as profit, fame, and award. The secondary interest also may be associated with the potential clinical benefits of the sub-cell, especially for genetic medicines applications, as well as the social impacts of the research itself. As we mentioned in the article published by The Guardian, previously Yamanaka had won a Nobel Prize for the discovery of induced pluripotent stem cell, which involved the reprogramming of adult somatic cells into embryonic stem cells. However, Abu Qatar methods comes to be much easier and simpler, which reveal a very significant findings and should be awarded if it is found to be real. Therefore, it is assumed that some conflict of interest may be present, which leads to her scientific misconduct based on the Islamic perspective. Conflict of interest is not desirable in Islam, whether in personal life or in scientific research. Also, Islam gives priority to social welfare over the individual interest. Based on the one hadith, leave that which makes you doubt, for that does not make you doubt. Basically, this hadith is considering the conflict of interest in any situations that can create doubts to others. Especially in this case, it's about the validity and reliability of the research itself.
Second agenda, Japanese culture.
Next, let's take a look on some culture in Japan that's been highlighted in this article, which are gender bias to Haruko Obokata and also the suicide culture of Obokata supervisor Yoshiki Sasai. First of all, regarding the gender bias, Japan ranked 105 out of 136 countries, and the rank dropped from 101 in 2012 to rank 105 in 2013. And some of the ideas about the gender in Japan are, the first one is men should work outside the home. And second one, genders should be brought up differently. Women are more suited to household work and child rearing than men. And also, the full-time housewives are valuable to society because of their family raising role. And from this case, it showed that gender inequality had resulted in more Japanese media to have interest in Obokata's work. However, in Islamic perspective, in Surah An-Nahl verse 19, Allah highlighted about the justice and do good, where both men and women have an equal position as servant and representative of God, and we can act as leader on earth without distinguishing our gender and also the skin color. Secondly is the suicide culture in Japan. There is a popular expression known kakugo no jisatsu, or suicide of resolve, that essentially means the act as a way of creating meaning through one's own death. And according to the World Health Organization, Japan has high suicide rate compared to other countries, and it ranking 21st highest in male suicide and 18th highest in female suicide, and more than 30,000 Japanese killing themselves each year. And the reason for this suicide is to preserve family and culture, and it also acts as expression of one's deep sense of shame. However, in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 195, described that life is a gift from Allah that we need to appreciate it. Thus, suicide is haram in Islam and considered as sin, where taking our life by suicide means that we have not fully understand the meaning of life.
Now, as for one of the issues that was raised by Dr. during the brainstorming session was, Japan or Japanese is known for their high ethical standard, so what has gone wrong? There are a few assumed factors that lead to this situation. Firstly, man is subjected to the demand for achievements. In this modern era, especially in highly developed countries like Japan, the demands to achieve something is highly stressful for them, hence boosting the desire to do anything they could in order for them to fulfill the expectations of their environments. Secondly, the need to support the group's harmony. Japanese word system actually promotes the group as compared to individual. In this case, as we can see, even though the blame was put on Obokata alone at the end of the case, but the initiative to proceed and progress with the research was also supported by her colleague as a way in maintaining the positive atmosphere of the group. This working as a group requirement has finally led to the negligence of the ethical aspect of the research, since no one in the research team were able to properly check her work and point out the lacking part in the methodology and data management. The third one is adaptation and influence on the fourth industrial revolution. Since the world is currently progressing in technological advancement, many of the major drivers of transformation currently affecting global industries. Due to this, all are immensely focusing on the advancements, not to mention for Japanese. It is assumed that with all the developments going on, the cultural assimilation between the Japanese and the Westerns started to bring impact on the ethical perspective of the researchers, in which began to corrode at what has been mentioned in the cases in the article.
Next, move on to the issue, do we need religion to be ethical? First of all, I would like to explain on the definition of ethics and religion. Ethics refer to well-known standards of right and wrong that prescribe what humans ought to do, usually in terms of rights, obligations, and benefits to society. Meanwhile, religion is based in some measure on the idea that God reveals insight about life and its true meaning. These insights are collected in texts such as the Quran, the Bible, and they are presented as revelation. As we know, in most religions, they advocate high ethical standards for their believers, so that they can act morally in their life. To answer the question, do we need religion to be ethical? The answer is no. It is because if ethics is restricted to religion, therefore they are only applicable to people who have religion. In fact, ethics also applies to the non-religious people, in which it may influence their action and behavior. A question that may arise regarding the relationship between ethics and religion is that which one overrides the other. In conventional theories, ethics override religious judgment. However, in some religious faiths like Islam, religious judgment overrides the ethics, meaning that in Islam, religious values such as Sharia laws cannot be overridden by moral values that are derived from humanism. Based on this case, since Haruko Obokata is a Japanese, we can say that she is a non-religious people. Supposedly, she should be ethical by not fabricating the result of her research, as it is one of the ethical codes of conduct in doing a research.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Next, I will continue with the related issue in Malaysia. A case in 2016 involving 4 researchers from University Malaya, Faculty of Medicine, has caused uproar as they were found to have falsified and manipulated data in their published paper. The case started with online criticism on their published paper. Because of that, conducted in-depth investigation, and it was found that duplication and manipulation of almost entire figures involving the images and graph. This also violates journal's policies on Image Data Integrity Ethics Committee. Because of that, all published articles were retracted. As you can see, This is an example of manipulated image by them in scientific reports paper, as every cell in each cell death stage appeared to be an exact copy. I had also screenshot their retracted paper. First one in scientific reports. The second one is from Frontiers in Pharmacology. And the third one is from peer-reviewed journal. Due to the case, Malaysia had established Malaysian Code of Responsible Conduct in Research, also known as MCRCR, to ensure research is pursued earnestly and honestly with integrity and accountability in Malaysia. Besides, representatives from public and private universities, research institutes, agencies, and ministries had also participated in developing MCRCR because they want to ensure a well-rounded code of ethics is established. Furthermore, in Islam, Allah has said that, and Allah curses those who are liars. Therefore, it is prohibited to convey lies, including us, the future scientists.
The last agenda is stem cell research.
The first focus of stem cell research is method for cells reprogramming. First is induced pluripotent stem cell. Induced pluripotent stem cell is a reprogramming animal and human somatic cells such as skin fibroblasts or peripheral blood mononuclear cells to form a pluripotent stem cell. This method was discovered by Shinya Yamanaka in 2006. Shinya Yamanaka used mouse embryonic fibroblasts and skin fibroblasts to turn it into pluripotent stem cell. 4 transcription factor genes were induced to the cells. This method has no ethical concern. Method is embryonic stem cell. Embryonic stem cell is a stem cell that derived from an undifferentiated inner mast cells of a human pre-implantation embryo known as blastocyst. Embryonic cells is one of pluripotent stem cells that can form cells ranging from muscle to nerve to blood, which is potentially any cell type that makes up the body. Embryonic stem cell was discovered by Carl Martin in 1981 using mouse embryo. Embryonic stem cell started to test on human embryo in 1998. Embryonic stem cell was placed into a specific culture to maintain its structure as undifferentiated cells until further use. The second focus of stem cell research is the importance of pluripotent stem cells.
Next, the importance of pluripotent stem cells. There are 2 main characteristics of pluripotent stem cells, which are self-renewal and potency. Pluripotent stem cells are able to divide continuously and differentiate into specialized adult cells. These 2 features had drawn the attention of researchers to study the potential use of pluripotent stem cells in the preclinical and clinical settings for the treatment of different diseases. In other words, the regenerative medicine where stem cells are intended to be used in replacing damaged tissues or organs.
Next, I will be explaining about the recommendation on this issue. Firstly is evaluation criteria. It is recommended to design a strict and comprehensive evaluation criteria to acknowledge high-quality research. For an example is peer review. Peer review help in determining the importance of the study by looking at their research ability and long-term contribution. Secondly, open data. Open data means sharing the data or information of the study, which is similar to the term of transparency. In this case, the research institution should establish an open data as the SOP throughout the scientific enterprise. This allows each and every individual that involved in the study to participate and to take note about the study and to detect or correct any unusual or unique information in the study. Next is to provide training. It is essential to provide training on good scientific practice and statistical usage for scientists at all levels. The training should be given not only to the junior scientists but also to the senior scientists, to the investigator, and also to the publisher. It is to improve their knowledge and continually reminding them about their responsibility in following the SOP in the research conduct. Lastly is the problem detector. Problem detector tools like Turnitin is important in research, which can be used to detect plagiarism or any alteration in the image. This tool will help researchers or scientists to adhere to the publishing ethics policies.
As a conclusion, to do research is not prohibited. With proper methods and manners, research that is beneficial to others is allowed. The mistakes done by Haruko Obokata were a lesson that can be improved by other researchers. Allah said in Surah An-Nur, verse 7, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, وَالْخَامِسَةُ أَنَّ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And a fifth oath, that the curse of Allah be on him if he is one of the liars. This means that Islam strongly prohibits lies in any form. Therefore, integrity and honesty are very important in any action. From the case of Obokata, she had made us realize that without integrity and honesty in doing research, people will end up embarrassing themselves and feeling guilty all the time. So with that, thank you.